now you butter and sugar this side. No,
Oh,
lemon
no,
and
that
sugar.
side, that side.
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
side.
Now
Okay,
you lemon
okay,
and sugar
okay.
this.
Okay.
Trust me, it's just it's right.
Okay.
It's right. And then
we
you'll
go.
be like, oh, that's
There we
right. No, lemon.
Oh,
You
sorry,
gotta
sorry,
do lemon.
sorry.
Go on.
I'm nervous. You're making me nervous. Oh my gosh, this is supposed to be my holiday, honey.
That's the way you do it. It's the two. It's the two.
These are great.
Now shut it and eat it.
Coming up on Need to Know, Dr. Seuss's birthday, Pancake Tuesday traditions, and British Pie Week. That and everything else you need to know. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Need to Know. I'm your host, Gemma Stafford. I'm a professional chef, cookbook author, and the creator of Bigger Bolder Baking. And I'm joined, as always, with my two lovely ladies, my partners in crime, Ami Shukla, who's the culinary director here at Bigger Bolder Baking, and Tiana Cohen, who is an amateur baker and a professional host. And we've got a good one today.
Yes, we do have a good one today. We actually have so much to talk about, so I'm just gonna get right into it. Kicking things off, it is Dr. Seuss's birthday. So, we don't have to go too deep into it, but I'd love to talk a little bit about some of the fun foods that we've seen in Dr. Seuss books. The one that I'm the most familiar with is green eggs and ham. My mom, her name is Samantha, so she is, and I quote, Sam I am. So that was that was a very it was a big part of my childhood, still is to this day. But then there's fun things in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. They have like the
roast beef.
Yeah, the who pudding. And fun things like that.
Truffle berry.
Yeah.
What is that?
What is that? But then I actually came across this. Gemma, you have made a video for Dr. Seuss. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Cat in the Hat, Dr. Seuss, they released a cookbook, and they've done a few, but like they released in the last few years, around 2 or 3 years ago, they released a cookbook. And they reached out and asked, would I make the Cat in the Bath birthday cake from the cookbook? So I made it with George. They sent us these lovely little aprons. I look back at the video now because I'd forgotten about it. And then I looked back and his hair was so blonde and he was so tiny. He was like half the size.
No, I
he
just
wasn't
watching
trying
the video again. I was like, oh my
adorable. He wasn't trying to karate chop me.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to set traps around the house like the real life Kevin McAllister. Like he was just a nice, sweet little baby.
I love how he was devouring the coffee and chocolate together.
Eating it. What I loved about the cake, it's actually like itself is, so it's like this chocolate cake with the strawberry frosting. And the reason it's called Cat in the Bath is in the book, The Cat in the Hat, when they make the pink ring in the tub.
Yeah.
And I felt like the frosting you made perfectly.
It looked good, didn't it?
Yeah.
The reason that cake suited me was because it was like kind of like lopsided and kind of leany, and the frosting was supposed to be leany. And the cake was supposed to be leany. And I was like, oh, that's where I shine.
Yeah.
Leaning cake.
Well, can I tell you, like, I'm so fascinated by that frosting because it's basically a 7-minute frosting.
Yeah.
But you use egg whites and sugar, but your liquid is strawberry puree.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
It's so cool. And it made me it blew my mind. I was like, oh, this is it. Like, I feel like opens up a whole world of flavored frostings. That I am now going to madly experiment with.
Because it's really hard to incorporate fruit purees into frostings that are butter-based. But that's way easier. You can do anything you wanted.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it did look gorgeous. In real life, it looks gorgeous. That was really fun. We got the cookbook. And you know what? I have to watch that again with George. I don't even know if he knows that exists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was also so cute when you were making the frosting by yourself. Like, he has left. You're like, my co-host is taking a nap,
Yeah. Like, pieced out hard.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, there's also so many other things to celebrate as we're getting into March here. We've left February. We're now getting into March. And that is Mardi Gras, which is tomorrow. And so Mardi Gras, I wanted to talk a little bit just about Mardi Gras, some of its cultural significance. So Mardi Gras is Fat Tuesday. It's the Tuesday before Lent, and it's celebrated in New Orleans and has now taken on global celebrations. And so I thought we could talk a little bit about some of the foods that you traditionally see at Mardi Gras and things like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So the first iconic thing is King's Cake. And I know, Ami, you and I have talked a little bit about it. I thought you could maybe tell us a little bit more about King's Cake.
Oh, yeah. It's a sweet, yeasted, enriched dough that can be served. It's baked in a ring shape. It can be served, or it can be baked with, and is very commonly baked with some fillings, like often cinnamon sugar. So you have a dough, you put the cinnamon sugar on, you roll it up almost like a cinnamon roll, and you form it into a roll. Sometimes people do other things like fruit or cream cheese fillings, and then the decoration is sort of colored glazes, or you can do like a single color, like a vanilla glaze, but you have these colored sugars that you put on it that are green and purple and yellow. And so they're just, it's kind of fun and bright. It's, super casual. And there is a little baby Jesus that is stuck in the cake. Usually after baking, or I guess it depends on what it's made out of. If it's made out of ceramic, you can put it in before you bake it. If it's plastic, don't do that. Then the cake gets sliced. And if you get the baby Jesus in your slice, then that means that you'll have good luck and prosperity for the rest of the year.
Nice.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, something that I think is so cool and interesting and just kind of shows how the world of baking can really bring the world together is Mardi Gras and Fat Tuesday is the day before Lent, and that is traditionally from New Orleans. But there's also Pancake Tuesday, which is the Tuesday before Lent, but that is more known in Europe. And so, but it's the same day and it's similar. Pancake Tuesday is also known as Shrove Tuesday. It's the day before Ash Wednesday. In these traditions with coming into the Lent season, but instead of King's Cake, you have pancakes. But we kind of talked about this a few episodes ago. Pancakes are not the same as what we know as pancakes.
Yeah, in Ireland, I think in a lot of Europe too, but when I was growing up, we didn't have like buttermilk pancakes. We always just had crepes. So, we knew pancakes as crepes. So I grew up Catholic. We celebrated Easter and we did Lent and all the things. So, but Pancake Tuesday was a big day in our house because it's really fun and it's simple. It's not really complicated. It's just, you have your dinner and in my house, this is how it went. I had your dinner and then my mom would make crepes for dessert and she would make a batter and there was 5 kids. And she would just do one at a time crepes and you'd line up and you'd get your crepe, then you'd go eat your crepe and then you'd line up again and then you'd get another crepe, you'd go eat it. You probably had 2 or 3 crepes or whatever, but she would just keep on going until the batter was all gone and all the kids had enough crepes. It was very special. It's one of when I think about growing up in Ireland, I can picture us lined up in the kitchen in the house that I grew up in. And I picture it being dark because I do a lot of my memories, and it's not saying, telling of my childhood in Ireland. It was just very dark country. It was dark outside at 4:30, you know what I mean? During the winter, it was just dark all the time. So it's just one of those things. It was dark outside. It was probably raining. And then we were all inside having crepes. Really lovely. And the crepes are just very simple. And we would have them, and nothing fancy. We wouldn't even have berries or, I remember somebody said to me Nutella. You would just have your crepe. You would sprinkle on castor sugar, a fine granulated sugar, and you would squeeze over fresh lemon juice. And that was it.
Is there any significance to it being a crepe that you eat on Pancake Tuesday?
I've heard a few different kind of explanations or reasons why they say crepes. The one that makes most sense to me and kind of what I think was probably true was that they're very indulgent. Mm-hmm. So you're indulging your last feast before you head into Lent, and they are used with kind of what they call forbidden ingredients around that time. So fat, butter, eggs, something that's really rich and yummy. So it's kind of your last hurrah before Lent, before you head into Lent, and then you're waiting. The next thing then is Easter. It's just a really lovely tradition, very simple. I've tried to do it here with George, probably around 2 or 3 years ago, and he just wasn't on board with the crepe situation. But I'd say if I tried him again, he'd be good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's probably because there's no maple syrup.
Robbie, no maple syrup.
But you could have a crepe with maple syrup.
You could. And you know what? In Paris, I definitely, when we were in Europe 2 summers ago, he had crepes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's not a fool. He's not going to turn down a crepe.
Well, I know we're a day early, but I did think that for our last hurrah here, we could have some crepes to get into the season. I know you mentioned you had some.
I do. I was very smart. I texted Ami last night and I said, "Can you make some crepes?"
And I'm
that
really
don't
grateful.
involve me.
Yeah.
And they look legit. They look gorgeous. So we're going to bring them in. We're going to heat them up, and I'm going to show you just how like the way we're going to dress them like the way I grew up eating them.
Great. Ooh, these smell so good.
So thank you, Ami, for these beautiful looking crepes.
Absolutely.
I see you followed my instruction perfectly.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to get in trouble. So you scatter over some granulated sugar. This is a little bit browny because it's organic sugar. I use this for us. Mm-hmm. And then you get a little bit of fresh lemon. At home, I will tell you, my mom did often use the little squeezy lemon.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like the
bottle?
juice, the free
In the bottle.
Yeah.
It looks
She had
like
5 kids, so you can't blame her.
No,
She's busy. No time to squeeze.
No. They probably also weren't as easily available as they are for us in California. I probably shouldn't have done the other side, right, Tommy? Yeah. Now, okay, I'll do this one's upside down, so I'll do this one. So a little bit of sugar.
So I have to say, Gemma, I know you did grow up with this, but I have to say, no, you're not doing anything wrong. But in my humble opinion, you need the 2-tiered approach. So you do the sugar and lemon.
Yeah.
You fold it in half, then you got to sugar and lemon again, and fold it in half, and then you get a properly lemoned and sugared crepe.
Easily convinced.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I have
I'm just
to
going
say.
to do it to keep her quiet. Here, there you go. Is this good enough for you?
No. You got to do that. You got to do it on the half. You got to. You're not doing it. No. You got to like.
I got.
There you go. Now you're gonna fold it over. Now you got it. There you go. See. Now you butter and sugar this side. No. Lemon and sugar.
That side.
Yeah. Now you lemon and sugar this.
Okay.
Trust me. It's just it's right.
Okay.
It's right. And then you'll be like, oh, that's right. No. Lemon.
Oh,
You gotta do lemon.
Sorry.
Go on.
I'm nervous. You're making me nervous. Oh my gosh, this is supposed to be my holiday, Ami.
That's the way you do it. It's the two. It's the two.
These are crepe.
Now shut it and eat it.
I'll tell you what, guaranteed this is going to be delicious. I'm going to say that is a lemony crepe.
You better. I don't want to hear anything else out of you.
It's going to be perfect. I'm going to say, oh, right. Who lemoned this crepe?
Who lemoned your crepe? Huh?
Mm.
I can hear you yumming in my ear.
Oh, it's good. These are good crepes.
I don't know if I've ever had one with just lemon and sugar before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
really
this
good.
is the way. And you get them in France like this.
Yeah.
You know, the Irish aren't so different from the French. We're just as fancy. Let me have a little taste. I haven't had one of these in a long time. Since we did this for my cookbook. Didn't we do this for my cookbook? Maybe it was book 1. I don't know.
We've done it for the website and maybe also for the cookbook.
Even the texture of the granulated sugar
Yeah.
reminds me. Some people do powdered sugar, which is totally fine. It's just this is the way my mom did it. I think this is the way they do it in France too, right?
Well, they do. And I actually figured out is when I was making, after visiting Paris, I went and was like, I want to recreate these lemon and sugar crepes that I would have in Paris. And they were just never really lemony enough, And I was like, why can't I get them? They were like so like tangy and sweet. And that is why I got really passionate about, I finally figured out you do it when it's a circle, you put the sugar and the lemon on generously, fold it in half, and you do it again. And then you really get that hit of lemon and sugar and it just pops in your mouth and it's so good.
Can you quickly walk us through the ingredients?
Oh, yeah. Gemma, forgive me, I didn't actually look at your mixing instructions, so I'll just, I just looked at the ingredients. So this may be different than what is instructed on the website, but I really just throw everything into a blender. So what it is, I think it was 4 eggs, 2 cups of flour, 3 cups of milk, a 1/4 cup of sugar, a couple tablespoons of sugar. I can't remember. There was some amount of sugar in there. Probably some salt, off the top of my head, some melted butter.
Yeah.
And vanilla.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. And I just threw everything in a blender, blended it for, probably about 5 seconds, let it rest for a minute, blended it for another 5 seconds, and then that was it. Then you let it rest for, you want the flour to properly hydrate. So you let it rest for at least a half an hour in your fridge, but you can definitely mix it up the night before and cook it the next morning. And you can cook it on as wide and flat of a skillet as you have. I think I just have a 10-inch stainless steel skillet. There's no coating on it. You brush that with butter. And when it's nice and hot, you pour about 1/3 of a cup of batter. I don't have, you can use a tool where you can spread the crepe around. I don't have one of those.
It works if you have the pan to go with it. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to do it.
I find no matter what, the easiest thing is to just pour the batter right into the center and just pick up the pan and swirl it.
Yeah.
It works really well. It works every time.
And then fill in any little holes that you have.
Yes. Yeah. So like I use an offset spatula and just sort of loosen it a little bit. And then it comes, once it's done, it only takes 30 seconds or a minute for it to be ready. It comes up and then you flip it. And that only, you don't cook it for very long, just enough to get a couple of bubbles in less than a minute, definitely about 30 seconds. So it's very quick.
It's so good. Now, I know you this had lemon and sugar, and you had mentioned, people have put Nutella and berries.
Yeah.
Do you ever have savory crepes?
Savory crepes, yes. And I remember when I was at Ballymaloo Cookery School after college, and they showed us how to make this great recipe. They did a mushroom a la creme there that literally went with everything, which was mushrooms and cream cooked down. And they put it on pasta. They put it on had it roast chicken. They did it with so many things. But they used to put it in a crepe. And like to what Ani was saying there, she was talking about the amount of sugar. I don't think my mom put sugar into these batters. And often you will see that they don't put sugar at all. So if you don't put sugar in your batter, it will lend itself to both sweet and savory. Mm-hmm. And I remember I've had them before with chorizo. I'll tell you what's really good in one of these, really good, a fried egg inside. Mm-hmm. Some like avocado put in cold, like not cooked after. Like I said, like chorizo, sausage meat, cheese, ham. Oh,
yes, I've had one with smoked salmon before.
Yeah, smoked salmon and cream cheese.
Yeah.
Yummy.
And
dill.
you can make if you're making only savory crepes, you can make them out of buckwheat flour.
Oh, that's true.
And basically the similar proportions. You could probably find a recipe online. And those are called galettes, but they're basically a crepe with buckwheat flour. And those lend themselves, they're nuttier, they're more savory in taste. You do definitely need to let that batter sit, preferably overnight. And then ham and cheese, eggs.
Yum. Ham, cheese, and eggs sounds
sauteed, mushrooms. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask about savory crepes is because for In the Mix today, we're actually going to talk about Pie Week, but not what you're thinking, at least not what I was thinking. So when we were talking about today's episode, we brought up how it's Pie Week, and my brain instantly went to dessert pies, fruit pies, apple pie, pumpkin pie, but it's actually British Pie Week. And what I learned from all my research is that it's really more savory pies. There's a little bit of sweet pies in there, but like meat pies. So I thought we could kind of take a deep dive for In the Mix here and talk about savory pie for British Pie Week.
I was so surprised to see that list, that it was all savory, like all of the winners. It was really, sorry to interrupt.
I wasn't surprised for a British list.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I knew that, I knew about British meat pies. So I'm going to refer to my notes here. So BBC did a list of some of the most popular pies from last year's British Pie Week. So some of those include cottage pie, no fuss shepherd's pie, easy fish pie, next level chicken pie. We get into mince pies, and then some of the sweet ones are lemon meringue, apple, banoffee pie, and then easy steak pie. And then this one I thought was interesting, chicken and mushroom puff pie.
Interesting. Why?
I just it sounds it
sounds good.
Again,
does it sound unusual?
No, it doesn't sound unusual, but again, I was thinking this is all going to be sweet pies. So to hear fish pie and steak pie, and then I love mushrooms. I'm I want to I want to get in on this.
Yeah.
But so I thought we could talk about savory baking, savory pies, kind of get your guys' thoughts on British Pie Week here.
I'll go. I have a personal connection with this because, a lot of our influence comes from Britain. So I grew up with pies like this, and I'm pretty sure it's the same in Britain, and maybe I'm pretty sure it's the same in Britain, but in Ireland, you go to your butcher who sells raw meat, and they will have a section with hot pies, with cooked meat pies. It could be steak and kidney, the steak, chicken and mushroom, chicken pot pie, like whatever it is. They'll have a variety of meat pies already cooked and ready to go. And my mum would always get those for us as kids growing up. We did horse riding on a Saturday, and we would always have them, I think, like after horse riding or before horse riding or something. But we had them a lot. Same with like sausage rolls. You'd pick them up in the butchers, or you would get them in supermarkets at the hot deli counter. There's always a variety of like hot pies. That was kind of like our fast food when it came to like grab something in a shop. Even in the petrol stations, this is what you get.
Oh my gosh.
Is pies, things like chicken goujons and stuff like that, but pies, sausage rolls. So I love them. I didn't always love steak and kidney for some reason. My mom always bought like one or two, and I don't know why. And you didn't know what it was until you ate your pie. You're like, oh great, I got this one, but you kind of still ate it. But the chicken pie with like peas and carrots and stuff like that. I love those. I love them. And then when I went to Australia, it's also a big thing in Australia, being a Commonwealth country. There's kind of a soft spot, even though like I didn't always love them growing up. I have a kind of a soft spot for like meat pies. And then for our dinners, we would have shepherd's pie on the regular. One of my favorite comfort foods to this day is like a really good fish pie with mashed potatoes on top. It's very like I made that for Kevin one time. So it's like a creamy base of it depends on the fish. You choose whatever fish you want. Generally people will put in a lot of white fish and maybe a bit of smoked fish, and the smoked fish will be your flavor. People don't often put in salmon in there because it can be a bit more expensive, and then you wouldn't have smoked fish with salmon often. Some people put in prawns, which is very fancy. Some people
Why are you looking at me for that?
I know, right? You know why. And then some people put in crab meat. That's my comfort. I adore it. If you're like really like want to take it up a notch, you put like dill in the mashed potato, or you put dill in the sauce. Those are the meals. Those are the dinners that I grew up on.
So these, when you're making one of these pies,
There's no base.
There's no base.
It depends on what it is. So if it's a chicken pie, there's no base either.
Yeah.
If you're doing it in a big dish and there's one layer of pastry. If you go to a butcher you get one of these individual pies. They do have pastry in the bottom and pastry on top. Shepherd's pie is just mashed potato on top, and then the fish pie is your white creamy sauce, all your fish, and then mashed potatoes on top.
Oh, and so no crust. It's just it's like
no, it's called a pie. Yeah, it's a good point. It's called a pie, but it's kind of in a dish baked like a.
I always assumed there'd be a bottom crust.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, right? When you think about it, like that doesn't make sense to me because there never was.
Yeah.
But if you told me this is a pie, I'd be like, well, where's the pastry?
Yeah, why are you calling it a pie?
Yeah.
Yeah, and nothing is cooked beforehand, all like the meats and stuff, or
Everything's cooked.
You cook it, and then
cooked.
Even if it has a crust on it, it's cooked. And then it just
all your
kind of
fillings are cooked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all your meat pies. Generally, it's funny because you don't cook sausage meat first before you make a sausage roll, and that turns out just fine. But with I will tell you, so a chicken pie, fish pie, all those, everything is cooked beforehand. It makes it actually a really easy dinner. The traditional British meat pies that have that kind of like. Is it like, I don't know, it's probably not aspic, but like the gelatin around, those like, then they're stout, they're kind of stocky like this, and they're in your list. I don't know if those can be raw. It's usually a mixture of different types of meat. So I'd say that they are cooked and then all put together.
That makes me think of the musical Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
With the pies.
It is. Those are pie shops. Those are the shops. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very deep. Like these have been around for a very long time. But British pies are very delicious.
Yeah, I feel like I remember reading years ago about Cornish pasties. That were like, that's kind of where they started, right? These hand pies that would be in the pie case, the pie crust itself for these hand pies were not even intended to be eaten. They were just extremely sturdy, and they were like given to men who were going to work in maybe mines or something. And it was just so, and it would be to encase the meat that they would eat inside. And but like they weren't like delicate and flaky. They were like something that they could easily wrap up and take for lunch.
That's
so interesting.
It's a really good point. So we did pasties a few years ago on the website. Pasties are generally it can have meat. There's meat or and then there's often ones with just potatoes and stuff. Do you remember having those, like eating those? Do you remember?
No. Did we made hand pies, little hand pies?
Yeah, well, we did pasties though, like traditional pasties with potatoes and I want to say like thyme or something like that.
I'm sure they were delicious.
Were
I
another
can't remember
thing.
them though.
Yeah, very savory. Pasties were another thing that we also grew up with selling in butchers. The pie, the crust that you're talking about, and I think I could be wrong, but that makes a lot of sense because those traditional British meat pies that I'm talking about, the kind of little stocky ones that are loaded with meat and have like the gelatin, which that gelatin could have come from the bones of the animal. Is that pastry was probably not intended to be eaten. And they do something for those types of pies that's called a hot water pie. And it's almost like the making, it doesn't like, we have lovely pie crusts, especially like on the website, we've got buttermilk pie crust. It has butter and buttermilk or sour cream pie crust. And we have savory short crust that has no sweetness and just a little bit of salt. So you can like and then you have puff pastry, like all lovely pastries, but the pastry that they used traditionally for the meat British pies was hot water pastry, which was made more like almost like a choux pastry, where it would be lard. It'd be cheap because probably was not intended to be eaten. But lard and water, you heat that up and then you add in your flour and you kind of cook it and then you have to chill it. I did read somewhere that they actually shaped it into molds. So rather than chill it and roll it, which is another step, they shaped it into the pie molds and then just put in the filling and then probably took away the pastry afterwards. So that makes sense. There's a lot of different pastries you can use for savory pies.
Well, that was actually my next question was, what do you think is the best pastry for these pies? Because you were saying they are normally just are on top, so you don't necessarily need to think about it supporting it. Like what would be, if you wanted to make a savory pie at home or make a British meat pie, what kind of pastry is the best to use?
It depends on the pie. Now here's the thing, like the thing about like using a puff pastry for pies, it's very delicious on top, but when you use puff pastry on the bottom, you're not getting all the greatness that comes from puff pastry, which is all the layers. So you get kind of a soggy bottom, which is okay because I'm kind of used to that. And then you get like flaky on top. So puff pastry is a good one to use for savory pies, sausage rolls, stuff like that. And you do need a hot oven to try and just make a pastry a bit crispier. And then short crust pastry is something that's very common in Britain, and it's pie crust without the sugar, and it has they call it short crust because there's a lot of butter, and so what they call it in baking terms like short, where it's very flaky and just like a high ratio of fat to flour. And then, like I said, this the hot water pastry is still used, very popular until this day. So if you wanted to do British pies, you could do store-bought rough puff pastry, which is very common in Britain. And we would have used this a lot in Ireland, is a kind of a in-between puff pastry. It incorporates folds, but you're not laminating. So it's much easier and quicker than puff pastry. You still get some of the results, though, of a puff pastry. You do get kind of like a bit of a layered pastry in the end.
I imagine that's actually a rough puff over puff pastry is probably nicer for something as sturdy as a meat pie because it's a sturdier dough compared to a traditional puff pastry.
Yeah.
And it's very quick to make. We have a great recipe on Bigger Bolder Baking.
Yeah.
It's really, really quick.
It's really nice. And like it is sometimes like if you think I'm going to make some pies, like rather than go to the store and get puff pastry, you can make it really easily. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. if you are interested, for British Pie Week, it's also a huge competition. And so just really quickly, I want to share the winner from last year. The supreme champion pie of pies for British Pie Week was a minted Wensleydale lamb and potato by Middleton in Teesdale Fish and Chip Shop, Bernard Castle, Durham.
Did you say minted?
Minted.
Yummy.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. Minted with lamb?
Minted with lamb.
Yeah, is that a thing?
It is a thing. Yeah, because you'd have on a Sunday roast, you'd have mint jelly.
Right.
Yeah. Lamb.
Yeah, that's the winner from last year. Yeah, so maybe one of these days we'll have to try it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, thank you both so much for your insight on savory pies and baking. I can't wait to try. We are back with the Bold Baking Hotline, where we answer questions directly from you. And for our first question, this isn't actually in reference to your savory pie crust recipe. And the question is, would it be okay to add dried herbs to the dough for savory pies, and which ones would you recommend?
Oh, that's a really nice addition. Yes, you can totally do that. And I definitely that'd be really lovely to enhance the flavor and just kind of elevate the pie a little bit. Definitely something dry, not something delicate and thin like basil. I would say something kind of sturdy: thyme, oregano, rosemary. You could even do dill. I know it's a bit delicate. I would just say stay away from something a little bit wet like a basil or something like that.
Could you do sage?
Oh, sage is perfect. And sage will go because of the meatiness of sage, it will go so well with pie crust, or with your pie filling, excuse me. And then I will say that on the topic of like add-ins, some grated a firm, kind of a drier cheese. You can grate in some Parmesan into your pie crust. And you can also, or do a little bit of sharp cheddar. Nothing wet. Not too soft. I'd say something firm and kind of crumbly. Irish or British cheddar would work really well. Be nice and salty, or Parmesan.
I feel like every time you talk, I go,
Yeah, we're gonna have to turn off your mic.
I know.
Could I throw in some slightly unusual spices, like a little ground cumin or black pepper, depending on what's your filling?
Black pepper would be nice.
Yeah.
Finely ground.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting hungry. Our next question is in regards to your chorizo hand pies, which we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier in this episode. And that question is, can I freeze these? These would be a great to have midweek without the hassle of making them. If I can freeze them, what would be the best way to do so? And what would the heating instructions be?
Absolutely. You could definitely freeze them. You can assemble them. I would put them on a parchment lined tray after you assemble them, and then freeze them until they're totally solid. And then you can transfer them into a Ziploc and take out what you want. Ideally, if you had the time and the forethought, you could take out the night before if you think you want to cook them the next day, you would take them out and let them defrost overnight in the refrigerator. But if you are spontaneous and you really just want to bake it, it's usually the way I would do it is just put it directly from frozen and bake it directly from frozen into the oven. You should be fine. It's a little bit of filling. It'll defrost before the crust bakes up. And you may need a couple more minutes on the crust because it's frozen, but you could just keep an eye on it.
Wow, I didn't know you could do that.
I do it with sausage rolls. I'll make off a huge batch of sausage rolls, and then I'll just slice them up. I'll freeze them a little bit, then I'll slice them while they're frozen because they just slice better. And then I'll put them in bags in the freezer. And I would, in my little air fryer, I'll put in 3 or 4. And I'll have freshly baked sausage rolls whenever I want them. And I actually had to stop doing it because I was overindulging.
Wait, in the air fryer is such a
and
good
they're
idea.
so crispy.
There's a little tangent I want to tell you. I just recently got a text from one of my really good friends, and all it said was, "Wait, you work with Gemma Stafford?" And I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "I think I just made her sausage rolls."
Oh, nice.
And I was like, "How were they? ... And she was like, "They were incredible." I'm like, it's in her family now, she has to bring them.
No way.
Isn't that so funny? Because she just wanted to make them, and she just Googled sausage rolls, and yours is the first one that comes up.
Funny.
Yeah, so it was a hit. And so then when I went and saw her, and she made them, and
That's the recipe I make.
yeah, so good.
That's
I
awesome.
know. So I'm gonna make them and put them in the air fryer. Okay, last question. And that is, how would you ensure a crisp bottom crust in savory pies like quiches or pot pies?
So I'll tell you, when I put my little sausage rolls in the air fryer, you want to have a nice hot oven. If it a hot temperature like 400, if it's not, they'll get kind of soggy on the bottom. That's just that rule applies to a big oven too. For pies, and we talk about this around the holiday season in November especially, for a crisp bottom, a pie that has two crusts, bottom and top. Put your pie in on a preheated tray, and it'll cook. It'll brown from the bottom, and it'll brown from the top.
Yeah, so you just put your baking sheet. You put your baking sheet in the oven while you're preheating your oven.
Yeah,
so it's already hot.
Preheating. And just do it. You know, often if it's a flat tray with no edges, just kind of easier. We just like slide it right in there and then let it bake on that, and that will make a huge difference. And it will stop it from being soggy, and it really, really works.
Wow.
And if it's like something like a quiche, if it's a crustless, if it's all a single crust, even if a recipe doesn't call for it, I always like to pre-bake the crust, even if it's like slightly, but just I think it helps a lot.
You know what? I'm like,
It's a pain.
I've done it. It's one extra step that I don't want to go to. And I've done it both ways. But what I have started to do is definitely, because I don't like to do that, put it in on the preheated tray. And I will tell you that depending on the material that you use, and I have an article on Bigger Bolder Baking about this, it depends. That will determine how it bakes up. We did find that glass does not give you. We all have that kind of like, you know, what I call a home economics kind of that old dish. Yeah. I'm trying to think as a Tefal or whoever makes them.
Pyrex, I think.
Pyrex makes a good one. Yeah. They don't brown up as well. It just doesn't conduct the heat in the same way, and it doesn't crisp up as well. So they're not the best for making pies. I will say that aluminum, or actually also something heavy. The heavier the pie pan, for a good quality pie pan, they can cost in some shops $20 or something like that. This is why I always recommend get good quality, but go to Home Goods or TJ Maxx or Marshalls and buy them there, so you get the good quality, but for a lesser price. And something like aluminum will bake up really well and get you something nice and crisp. Ceramic does not as much, and neither does glass.
A little side note, have you ever baked a quiche in a cast iron skillet?
No, is that a thing?
No, I don't know. It just occurred to me. I was wondering.
I've done a frittata, but that doesn't have a crust.
It doesn't have a crust. But now I kind of want to go home and do that. I wonder if it would.
Oh yeah, okay. I know where your head's at. But my thing is that how those pots, and the reason they're so popular for certain things is they retain heat. So when I take my quiche out of the oven, it's going to keep on cooking in that hot pot, you know?
Yeah.
Go home and test it, and then let us know what you think.
Like, I made the best. I didn't even have to pre-bake it. It was so good. I don't know. Now I have to go home. And
You gotta go. Go test it.
I have so many things on my list.
Well, thank you both so much for all of that fun information. I'm so excited to go home and try out a pie, like a British pie. It's my goal for the week. We hope you have enjoyed this episode, whether you're celebrating Dr. Seuss's birthday, Mardi Gras, or Pancake Tuesday. Make sure to always tag us at Need to Know Pod on Instagram. Comment, like, rate, review us, subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can catch every episode of Need to Know on YouTube.
From HRN and the Bold Baking Network, you are watching the Need to Know Baking Entertainment podcast.